Everybody? We are here for some week 6 salary exploitation. I am Russell Clay. You can find me on Twitter at Russell J. Clay. We are here with our friend Jason Gilbalt, who does our weekly article for salary exploitation. Jason, before we jump in, what's your read on the week 6 slate?
Not a lot of value that I'm excited with. I think salaries have gone pretty strong this year, where in terms of we're starting to see some struggling guys drop down a little bit, and people are going to be buying low on a week-to-week basis. But outside of that, there's not much value, especially at the quarterback position. There's no guy below 6K that I want to play on DK this week.
Fair enough. To jump right into it, let's get the quarterbacks. You highlighted Deshaun Watson and Carson Palmer. Watson, obviously, with a really good matchup against Cleveland. They haven't been giving up huge, fantasy performances, but with this type of matchup with Watson, who's clearly going to air it out, the running game has been okay, not great, kind of moving the chains for them, but not breaking off long touchdowns. So it's kind of really good for the passing game. What are you looking at with those two, and Carson Palmer especially?
Do you feel Watson's even priced up enough at these prices for what his recent production's been?
Yahoo, yeah.
Yeah, Yahoo. He's up with the big boys now on Yahoo, but still
that's
not
where
above,
he should be.
Yeah, still not above 7K on DK. I think 67 is probably the last week that we see him below 7K. Mm-hmm. Expect him to get into that mid-8 range, which I still think is viable. But Watson, 79, he's got a really nice stretch coming up. You still got Tennessee another game. You got the Colts twice. This is just going to be a time to just hammer Watson Hopkins. Hopkins has a big price tag now, but for what he's done, I just don't even think these prices are still more expensive enough. Outside of Yahoo and Carson Palmer, he's on the cheaper side this week. And for the amount of times that Arizona just keeps throwing, they were bad this week, and he still managed 15.6 on DK. It's not bad. And I think DK is probably the only spot that I use him, and probably just more of a contrarian way, because he's pretty close to a lock for that 300-yard mark. He's hit it 3 times this year already, and that's a nice little added bump, because it doesn't seem like he's ever going to throw 3+ touchdowns in a game ever again in his life.
Yeah, and really the bargain basement that we've kind of been using and relying on isn't really there this week. You could play Hoyer, but it's not nearly as good of a matchup. McCown's really the only guy I'm looking at. You can't or Goff and who's the other guy there? Goff and Trubisky totally off the board with their matchups. Trubisky against Baltimore and Goff against who? Jacksonville, yeah. So you can't play those guys whatsoever, no matter the price. So you're really just looking at those two, and then you mentioned Palmer. So, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I can't trust Roethlisberger. I'll play his weapons, but especially on the road, it's looking kind of ugly there as well.
Yeah, those guys below 6K. I think Hoyer's a decent spot. I kind of like McCown. I think McCown's my favorite of the group, but I don't know if that's not necessarily saying much. Joe Flacco against the Bears. I know Flacco looked decent, I guess, last week against Oakland. You like Flacco more than I did. I don't like that offense. I think the Bears defense is decent enough. I think that's just kind of an ugly, grinded out game.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed Mike Wallace got all 3 of the big receptions in that game. If it were Macklin, I would have liked that quite a bit more. But, Flacco got very overshadowed. But he actually looked decent, just didn't get those passing touchdowns. Would you pay up here this week? Is that kind of your plan?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think Watson's probably going to come as one of the most heavily owned quarterbacks of the week. But I definitely don't mind paying for Brady. Of course, if you played the Thursday slate and this was your first time playing for Brady this year, then you're not happy. But I don't mind him. I think Aaron Rodgers, I'll get some exposure, because obviously going up against Minnesota is not the most ideal matchup on the road. But I still don't mind it, because I think his ownership will come down a little bit. But outside of those guys, really, we're not looking at a lot this week. We got a lot of guys that are taken off the board by buys. Matt Ryan's also intriguing, though, if he can get back going and put up some points.
Definitely. Running back, Mike Gillislee, Lamar Miller, Andre Ellington. Obviously, we've been very intrigued by Ellington the last few weeks with his usage in the pass game. Certainly, pretty much an auto play last week on DK. Obviously, hit value there. Gillislee kind of had a rough few games, but I like where your head's at, with that rush defense. I think the Patriots will be able to move the ball with the pass, but I do think this is a game where you could see the 2-touchdown Gillislee game. So is that kind of where you're headed there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously the Pats are going to come as one of the highest totals. You expect them to be 10 2-touchdown favorites here. I mean, it's a good spot for him. I mean, yeah, the last few games he has not topped more than 6 fantasy points in his last 3 outings. I mean, hasn't been used. He's not using the passing game. There's no PPR work for him at all. You just basically got to hope that he gets the red zone look. So we've also seen New England sprinkle in some Deion Lewis, which has been kind of frustrating for Gillislee's usage, but he's been successful. Like, he's getting at least 12 rushing attempts a game. And, here against the Jets, I think it gives your lineup a different approach, because I don't think people are going to be really going after the New England, backfield.
Definitely. And in terms of Ellington, still very cheap on Yahoo. DraftKings, a $700 bump. He was $4,600 last week. That was really nice. Are you still just hammering him at 53, or is it kind of a situation where, all right, I still think he's got a decent shot at a touchdown? Like, he has shown the ability in the past to break a big one. So is it kind of that, or are you okay with 15 points at 5,300?
I mean, I'm definitely okay with it. I mean, when you look at things, he's, I'm trying not to view him as a running back, because he's essentially just being used as a wide receiver. And I mean, 32 targets over the last 3 weeks, in an offense that's throwing the most times per game this year. I just think, Ellington's basically the wide receiver 2 on this team. I mean, you're getting these random John Brown, Jerron Brown, JJ Nelson games. You're also looking at Larry Fitzgerald, who's still getting his 10 plus targets, but Ellington's been pretty much the clear number 2 that you can rely on in a PPR site. So I'm okay with 5,300, because when you look below 55 on DraftKings in terms of those wide receivers, I don't see a guy with a 10 to 15 point floor. So I kind of take that into consideration as well.
Lamar Miller, great leverage off Watson, and also just a great play on his own. He's getting tons of touches, and by tons, I mean tons for Lamar Miller. Obviously, he's not going to be Fournette or, Le'Veon Bell projecting for 390 touches or whatever, but we're kind of looking at a pretty interesting workload against Cleveland. Watson's shown he can move the ball. They're going to be in the red zone. Could be, we saw it a few weeks ago, Lamar Miller, 2 touchdowns. Could see something like that again for sure. 25 on Yahoo, only 68 on FanDuel with high touchdown upside. So, yeah, overall, great play there.
Yeah, I like Miller. And as you said, he's kind of that good pivot away from the passing game if you're going that route. I mean, I wouldn't even mind playing. It's hard because I know you want to play Hopkins with Watson, but I don't mind Watson and Miller together this week.
Good call.
Cleveland's defense isn't bad. Like, their rush defense isn't bad. This isn't one where you just hammer Miller, So they got Myles Garrett back. That's a big gain on the line. So, I mean, it's just more of a good spot with them being at home. I think Houston's offense is actually really moving the ball well. I like Will Fuller and Hopkins, and, Watson's ability to just move the ball right now is really helpful for everyone, including Miller. So you were talking about Fournette, big price jump, 7K on DK last week. He's 8K on now, 76 to 86 on FanDuel. He's completely earned these price tags. Like, he
earned it 2 weeks ago. And that's what I was trying to say. It's like, why is this guy 6,900? He's on pace for 400 touches. And
it's ahead of the game there.
It's not that he's the best running back in the league. It's that the Jaguars have nothing else. They don't want to pass. And he's literally on pace for that Larry Johnson 400 touch season. 390 touches he's on pace for right now. So it makes sense to me. I thought he should have been here a few weeks ago, but it's tougher now. Yeah. See, this is what I was looking for. Now it's at least a tough decision. I don't think you can just flop him in there at 8K. Um,
No.
but
CJ Anderson, just want to mention him real quick. He's $22 on Yahoo, 7,000 on FanDuel against a Giants team that's pretty much done. Like, I just think there's no hope left in this team whatsoever already at week 6.
mhm.
And this defense has already been awful against the rush. You know, they came into last week ranked 31st, allowed a monster game to Melvin Gordon. You know, Denver at home, CJ Anderson's been a much better play. I think he's actually a really good RB2 this week, but I mean, unfortunately, you don't have him on the main slate for DK. But FanDuel and Yahoo, I like him quite a bit.
Definitely. Wide receivers, Amari Cooper, we'll talk about that one. Terrell Pryor, Randall Cobb. I like Randall Cobb again. I really got screwed up last week because of Devontae Adams. I was all in on Cobb, and then Adams ends up playing. I guess the question would be which cornerback is going to be on Cobb, in the slot. I think he should have a really good matchup. But Adams is on Trey Waynes. Trey Waynes is on Adams, I mean. So that could be an interesting matchup to exploit with. Are you totally avoiding Jordy this week?
Yeah, I just don't. I just Xavier Rhodes has just earned that right where I just don't
Yep.
target guys. I didn't look at Antonio Brown against him. Mike Evans. I'm just not playing these guys against Xavier Rhodes. There's very few cornerbacks that I'll shy away from, but it's Patrick Pearson, it's Xavier Rhodes, and there's another one, but I can't really think of it right now. Maybe Josh Norman, but yeah, I think Adams is a solid play. His price hasn't really come up. Like, you look at Yahoo, there's like a lot of sweet spot in that 16 to 22 range because like Brandon Cooks is still cheap. There's a lot of guys there, but FanDuel, once again, I think 6,000 to 7,000 is kind of where you're going to be sitting this week because of the pay up situation at running back.
I have a question. Do you think number one corners start guarding Chris Hogan? He's been the more obviously Cooks has the yards, but he's been like the one this year, sort of,
He's consistently around like 8 I was shocked at his price, obviously coming off the Thursday slate, and I was kind of just looking, I was like, oh my God, he's up at 7K on DraftKings. Like, and I kind of looked through and I'm like, yeah, he's been solid this year, but I'm kind of, you begin to think, I think teams just have to basically play your speed corners on Cooks, and I think you do have to begin to look at your best coverage guy and put him on Hogan.
Teams are going to look at the film and see Hogan's just ripping people up right now. So I'll be interested to see how that ends up, but that is something to watch, especially for cornerback matchups, because, a lot of targets are going Hogan's way, and Cooks has kind of been like, and this is what I think the Patriots are waiting for, teams to stop emphasizing Cooks. There should be some big games. There's going to be a lot of passing yards to go around. All right. Amari Cooper. I don't think this is the week. I don't think this is the week yet. I get it. Price, you can play him for this price. It is Amari Cooper. I just I'm looking to wait another week,
Good.
Yeah, this is the week if you want to be on him before everyone else, because I don't think he's going to be low owned next week, even if he has another bad week because of the matchup. But this week, he'll be really low owned.
So, like, I wanna look and see, because whoever Casey Hayward is on, I'm probably going to be off of, whether that's Crabtree or whether that's Cooper. And I don't think Crabtree's really all that expensive. I mean, he kind of dropped just a little bit this week, which was weird because he did well against Baltimore. But Cooper's been awful, and people look at the PFF grades, they look at the drops, and they're just like, Cooper sucks. He's such a bust. And this is such a good time. I love when people do this, because all the industry guys just rag on him, and all of a sudden, like, Cooper's going to drop like 100-yard, 2-touchdown game at some point.
He is. He absolutely is. I just, like you mentioned, I worry about that matchup. I don't know if the number one corner, because NFL teams aren't looking at it like Cooper's bad. You know what I mean?
No. Like, Crabtree's still getting number 2 corners sometimes.
Right,
That's
right.
the problem. Like, I really do hope Hayward is, because the loss of Verrett, like, if Jason Verrett was back, I would not be targeting this game really at all on Oakland's side. Like, that's 2 shutdown corners. But Hayward's been, he's held his own. But if he's on Crabtree, I think Cooper's worth a look. And now he's at prices where it's easier to take shots on, because
Mm-hmm.
if he was another 1,000 higher, on both sides, I think we'd just be looking and go, nope, too expensive for his 3-point, floor. Like I'm not playing him.
Right. So I'm generally with the concept. I just worry if this matchup's tough. Certainly a great tournament dart, and he is
Yeah.
a dart at 5K.
We'll
You can
revisit later in the week.
Yeah, and 16 on Yahoo, definitely a dart play you can look at. You mentioned Terrell Pryor. I don't want to talk about Terrell Pryor because he sucks, but certainly a viable play at these prices with the target volume he's getting. No knock there,
I like Washington this week. Get San
Yeah,
Francisco at home. Their defenses, secondary has been struggling over the last few weeks. We finally kind of starting to see it. Pryor hasn't had the big game. The targets were there the first week. They've been kind of mediocre over the last few. Bounced back last week, but I like him here at these prices. I think you can take shots on him again, especially because, dude, DraftKings, I just don't like this.
good.
You got
Got a good.
First, Tyrell Williams, like all in the 5,500. I just don't. These guys,
I got a good question for you. Are you playing Carlos Hyde going forward?
No, I played last week and I'm done.
Are you worried about Matt Breida taking snaps?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a little worried that he's hurt. And Matt Breida is not a bad replacement level running back. So I think that's something.
Shanahan knows it. He's a smart guy. He knows that Breida's a decent back. And I just don't think Hyde's healthy. Like the hip, I don't think he's ever going to be healthy.
So something to keep in mind. Tight end. Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's reeling us right back in, isn't he? He's been good. So if you look at it, 3 of the last 4 weeks, he's actually been pretty good. He just had those 2 zeros to start the year.
Speaking of zeros, Evan Ingram played this week.
Yep, Evan Ingram. That hurts my soul. You wrote down Henry, ASJ. Gotta love the matchup for ASJ again. Had that beautiful fade to the corner for that touchdown last week. My exposure loved it, even though my lineups were all dead by 1:01 p.m. when Devontae Parker got hurt. So, ASJ, Hunter Henry, any thoughts on those guys, or is it just kind of an ugly week at tight end again?
Dude, this is a bad tight end week. Like, we don't have Zach Ertz on the main slate to just casually plug and play. Gronk, Jordan Reed, Travis Kelce, all banged up with injuries. Got to keep an eye on them moving forward. The cheap guys, Eric Ebron's dead. Those guys that are just really not usable right now are all super cheap. I just don't want to use. I think Hunter Henry is interesting. Prices come up a little bit because he actually has been productive. He did play over 70% of the snaps last week. He saw 8 targets. Only caught 3, but the 42 yards and a touchdown. It was one of the higher scoring tight ends this week. ASJ, yeah, price tag is going to slowly start to rise. I don't feel like it's quite high enough yet to where I'm kind of just like, it's not a lot. So I don't mind these two. I think these are the two that jumped off the page for me early on because there's not a lot lower and there's not a lot higher that we can really talk about on Tuesday morning.
Defenses.
Same thing.
Texans and Jaguars, which are both basically pay up options. Texans.
There's no one cheap.
Texans losing. Watt and Whitney Merciless potentially. Doesn't matter. It's still the Browns.
It's the Browns. Houston's at home.
Still the Browns.
Watson's going to put points on the board. They're going to score.
Yep. They're going to be in comeback mode. It's going to be a pick 6 potential. Yeah. No, I like where your head's at. And my boy Jared Goff. We love him as I'm back as a Rams fan, but the Seahawks kind of exposed. He's better this year, but if you can get pressure on him, he's just not an athletic guy, and he doesn't have that movement in the pocket you want. So, Jags can get pressure. This could get ugly. Unless Gurley just takes over, which is a possibility. But even so, I don't think he's going to be able to just easily get those Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee passes against the secondary. So certainly worried. Certainly like the Jags play as a tournament punt. I think the Buccaneers against Zona are an interesting tournament play for that Carson Palmer pick six.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's pretty ugly out there. No denying that.
We've been getting discounts on Baltimore like the last few weeks. That's over. Washington, Atlanta are in good spots at home against bad offenses, but they're priced out. Like, we're not getting a discount on any of these teams. There's no real standout value defense this week, so I'm just gonna take Jacksonville and hope they game plan around Tavon Austin again, and we'll call it a day.
And obviously, keep in mind for the Vikings, if Diggs is like still hurt and not practicing, Packers might be an interesting GPP play. No Diggs basically means there's no, they have Floyd and Thielen. I don't know how well that would move the ball with no running back now. McKinnon's fine, but he's no Dalvin Cook. So definitely tune into the slate breakdown, because we'll break all this down much more in depth there. But in terms of values, it's kind of a rough week. As always, if you like what we're doing here, give us a like and subscribe, and hopefully we can help you out. And we will see you guys in week 7.